to call the meeting to order because we had a flub up on noticing today. So we will officially call the legislative meeting to order at 4:30. And additionally, we have two of our directors, Directors Hampson and Rankin, stuck in Seattle's brilliant traffic. So at this time, we will enjoy a performance from the students from Meany Middle School who have joined us. And directors, please take your seats in the front row so you can enjoy.
Hi, we're the Meany Skate Club, and today we have a performance from the talent show. Due to copyright, we do not have as many of our performers as we originally had, but we still have a really good show for you. Hi, I'm Audrey Ferguson. Thank you.
My name is Louise Jerry, and I'm reading a. I'm just gonna go with that. My name is Louise Jerry, and I'm reading a poem I wrote called Notepad. My world is full of many words. They represent excitement, anger, bad things, good. There is a planet hidden deep inside in which these words try to reside. In a blizzard swirling as fast as can be until I find the ones I need. Some thoughts deserve to be torn to shreds, but some deserve a notepad instead. And so I wrote down with my notes app some thoughts I have for a poem called Notepad. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elliot Avenger, and I will be playing an Irish tune called Planks Dear One.
Thank you.
And that was our show. Thank you for listening.
Okay, you have your 15 minutes of fame, and we want you to tell us what your name is, what grade you're in, and who is the staff member that brought these talented young people. Come on up. You're part and parcel of this team. The big team, the mini team. Your name is, how
Okay.
long have you been teaching Seattle Public Schools?
All my life.
And feels like it, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
at
about 20
Meany.
years.
And tell us how you got here.
I am teaching math at Meany, but Chanda Otis, our principal, has hired me at a couple different schools and let me direct plays. So the Stage Club started last year. One of the skills that I work on a lot with these students is independence. So I did not expect to take the mic today, but I appreciate the chance, and it's a real thrill to be able to work with these students.
I'm Amelia Zwerin. I'm in 7th grade.
I'm First Tespa, and I'm in 6th grade.
I'm Audrey Ferguson, and I'm in 6th grade.
I'm Louise Jerry. I am in 7th grade.
I'm Ellie Davinger. I'm in 6th grade.
Okay, how about a round of applause for these? And I have a new fantasy. My old fantasy was music every day, every student, blow up our math scores. Now it's doing a back bend, a walking back bend, and playing the violin at the same time. Thanks very much. Okay, as mentioned before, because of the snafu on publicly noticing this legislative meeting, we will start it at 4:30, so you've got a stretch break. But directors, back up here on the dais at 4:30. Thank you. 6:30, December 11th, 2019. Welcome to the Seattle Public Schools Board's legislative meeting. We started late tonight because of a snafu on one of our public announcements. And I'm calling this meeting to order. And as we begin, this board and the district would like to recognize and honor the First Peoples of the Puget Sound Territories by acknowledging that we are on the land of the coastal Salish tribes. First, I'd like to welcome our new board of directors, Director Hampson, Director Rankin, and Director Rivera Smith. I want you to know they've been working very hard prior to their oath of office last Monday, and they've been attending meetings nonstop, and it's like getting a drink of water out of a fire hose. But this is going to be a great 2 years, and I cannot wait to do fabulous, robust work on behalf of Seattle Public Schools' 53,000 students and 12,000 employees. I am excited. I'll note that the titles on the dais this evening are not correct, and in fact, we will be having an election soon. And I'll also note that it has been my extraordinary privilege and honor to preside as the president for the last 2 years. And I am frankly very happy to give up the mic and the gavel. And we do have a gavel here. We haven't used it yet, if you can believe that. Because we have fabulous people in depth on this board to pick right up where we left off and to keep moving. And I don't think it's appropriate, frankly, to cork the system. And we've got folks ready and willing and able, and again, I think most appropriate. And I also will look forward to having some additional time as opposed to focusing on a multitude of emails, devils in the details, and administrative issues. So, also would like to welcome Jamie Spott at the end here, who is joining us on the dais this evening from the Seattle Skills Center. Jamie will have an opportunity to give comments later in the meeting, and she is welcome to stay till the bitter end. And when directors are asking questions of staff, you are welcome to pick up the mic and ask questions as well. Student voice is very important to us. We're doing a better job at that, and you can help us do even better. Okay. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
For those that would prefer, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We had the opportunity earlier to hear from the students from Meany Middle School before the meeting was called for order, and somebody is whispering to me because this is a team sport. Roll call, please.
Director DeWolf,
Here.
Director Hampson, here. Director Hersey,
Here.
Director Mack, here. Director Rankin,
Here.
Director Rivera Smith, present. Director Harris,
Here. Okay, Madam Superintendent, the floor is yours. Superintendent comments. Thank you.
Well, hello, everybody. And I also want to second the congratulations to the new board directors. You look really, really good up here. And I'm just really pleased to be a member of this team, this leadership team that is going to forge a new path for Seattle Public Schools and be really based in equity. And I'm just really proud to be up here on the dais with all of you. And as you know, we'll have a new executive committee tonight after elections, and I just want to take a moment to really thank the current executive committee, Director DeWolf, who's been member at large, Director Burke, who is not on the board anymore, but in particular, President Harris. Thank you so much for steering this ship over. Since I've been here, it's just been really a pleasure to have you here seated by me and leading this district. And I just really appreciate your leadership through some tough times, hard conversations, but also really, really good decisions that were made up here. And so I just really want to thank you for that, and thank you for your leadership over the past 2 years. Thanks. Okay. For new directors and current and old directors, I have grounded my superintendent comments in our strategic plan. So this is how I start out each presentation, just to make sure we're grounded in that. And these are our priorities with a focus on the 2019-20 goals so far this year. I highlight what I am seeing both at John Stanford and when I'm out in schools, and know that everyone in our system is responsible to implementing this plan, and that is what I see in the spaces that I visit. As you likely know, the 3 goals and initiatives that we have taken on this year are safe and welcoming environments, 3rd grade reading, culturally responsive practices, all in the service to African American boys and young men and students furthest from educational justice. We lifted these goals because they set the stage, they create the culture and climate necessary for our students to be successful in reaching the other goals in Seattle Excellence. And as I mentioned, I see this work playing out in every classroom I visit, and I'm so grateful to our school leaders and our teachers for embracing this work wholeheartedly. I look forward to your partnership in lifting and supporting this work as well. Tier 1 behavior supports. PBIS is evident in all of the schools I visit from pre-K to high school. In this picture, you can see information from Broadview Thompson, Lincoln High School, and South Shore Pre-K 8. The mission at Lincoln is to learn with passion, act with courage, improve the world. Students and staff at Lincoln are in teams, and they spend the first weeks of school building a safe and welcoming environment where everyone can thrive. They use Character Strong, which provides students with SEL competencies and character development. Principal Salmons at Broadview Thompson has worked with staff to build strong PBIS to support students. They have Bulldog positive expectations called Be Safe, Be Respectful, Be Responsible. And throughout the school, the expectations of behavior are posted everywhere. And this one explains the expectations for bathroom behavior, which we all know is very important. The Academy for Creating Excellence, or ARC, is a course for middle school boys of color at South Shore. And here is their code of honor that the students repeat daily with the hope that they internalize these words and they become actions and beliefs for the students in this course. Principal Hendrickson, or Mr. H, as they call him there, is hopeful to start an art class for younger students soon. Circles are used in almost all of our elementary classrooms as a way to build community at the beginning or end of the day. The picture on the bottom left is an art class at Broadview Thompson. The top picture are the students in the ARC class at Pre-K 8 South Shore, reciting the code that you just saw at the end of class. And this work really is showing to be transformative for those students in the class. It was pretty impressive to sit in there and see the work that they're doing and the internal empowerment that's happening as a result of having that class present in their school. The Broadview Thompson team embodies lifelong learning. They are aligning their reading expectations for students both horizontally and vertically. 3rd grade students work in small reading groups to receive instruction that is at their just right level. Staff are using SIPS, which is Systematic Instruction and Phonological Awareness, phonics and sight words. How about that one? Which is a research-based decoding intervention program proven to help new and struggling readers in K-12 build skills and confidence for fluent, independent reading. SIPS is a part of the CCC instructional materials and is a great intervention for students who need a little extra support in reading. At South Shore Pre-K 8, I visited several classes where students were engaged in independent reading or working in small groups with their teachers. I dropped in a 2nd grade classroom that was using Flocabulary. I encourage you to look it up. It is a hip-hop based supplemental material that helps students build a variety of reading skills. During the lesson, I observed students were using text clues to make inferences, which is a very engaging, culturally relevant lesson. Staff at Broadview Thompson learned side by side with their families and central office staff. As one of our 13 focus schools, they received central office assistance to support their MTSS, their English language learners, and their special education work. Family connectors support Broadview Thompson families on ways to navigate our system here at SPS. Both Broadview Thompson and South Shore are fortunate recipients of teachers from Seattle Teacher Residency. Seattle Teacher Residency cohorts are more diverse than our current staff, and each cohort continues to be more diverse than the previous cohort. So we're really proud of that partnership that we have with the Alliance and the University of Washington. At South Shore, over 60% of their elementary teachers are teachers of color. There's no shortage of Seattle excellence in our schools. The photo on the left is from the after-school robotics team at Broadview Thompson. Thank you again to the supporters at Washington First and Amazon for making this work possible in our schools. These two boys were trying to get their robot to stay on that black line. While they were not successful, their gift to continue and their resilience and their efforts to continue to try was very impressive. And those two on the right, they were excited to meet a superintendent and tell me all about their reading they were doing in school. And I hope that they never, ever lose their passion for learning. I also met with the Student Advisory Board this past weekend. They remain committed to our work and want to be more engaged in the work centered on Seattle excellence and especially Black excellence. And that concludes my remarks, Madam President, and just want to thank you, directors, and welcome you again and look forward to our work.
Thanks ever so much. Now we've come to Roman 4 Board Committee reports. Who would like to go first? Director Mack, Ops.
Good evening. I can do both ops and then legislative liaison, just touch base on that. I guess starting first with the legislative liaison work, the legislature has not convened yet. That happens in early January. We did have the WASDA conference a couple weeks ago, in which resolutions, which are somewhat similar to the legislative agenda that's been adopted by WASDA, that was discussed at that time. We learned then that, and it's since been pushed out, that the staffing enrichment work group has finished their work. This was a work group that was convened under the 2242 law to take a look at the prototypical school funding model and make changes to it, recommendations to improve it. It hasn't been changed in a good number of years. Initiative 1351 was passed quite a long time ago, which would have actually given us smaller class sizes and funded nurses and counselors and things, and that didn't actually get funded. So this work group has written their report and put out their recommendations, and I think that their recommendation is a request for the 2021 school year, so next year would add an additional $500 million into the system if the legislature were to adopt that. So this is a positive report coming forward to ask the legislature to fund our counselors and nurses at a more appropriate level. So we look forward to doing that advocacy come January. For ops, we had a meeting, I think, last week, and we actually kept it on time for once in a great while, but it was a packed meeting, including, let's see, we talked about the 6900 and 6901 policies. 6901 is going to be revised, 6900 is going to be updated. We're still in process and had a nice discussion about where that is and moving forward. The Capacity Enrollment and Facilities Master Plan Advisory Committee has now been advertised, and I believe the deadline might have been today, but we decided in committee that because of the holidays and the lateness and all of that, that we should actually extend that deadline so we make sure we can get enough applications. I'm not sure what it's been extended to, but I think sometime in the first week of January is when that'll happen. So if you know anyone that's interested in participating on that advisory committee, super excited to have folks engage in that. we talked about and had the board action reports around capacity management actions. This is where we have to look forward into the next year and see if we need to convert a staff room into a classroom because we're going to expect that there's going to be more students, or we need to add portables, that sort of thing. So we got that report, and I think it's a light year compared to what's happened over the last 5 years. And I think that's essentially it. The next one will be January 9th.
And who would like to report out from CNI yesterday? Director DeWolf, you're up. Thank you.
President Harris, I don't have my notes, but what I will say is yesterday one bar came through yesterday, which we'll see on our agenda, not at this meeting, but the following meeting we will have it for introduction. It was an interim committee meeting, given that we haven't fully fleshed out the new committee structure and folks on it. So we had a really great discussion about advanced learning task force and some of the work, more broadly about advanced learning. Had an update from our Native Education program, Gail Morris, and also heard an update from folks working on science implementation. So I think the only thing I wanted to add was that recognized from the minutes that I didn't attend at the last one, that in February we should be getting an update from folks working on the anti-racism policies. So just for CNI folks to be kind of on the forecast that I looking through the notes in the meeting minutes, we should hear something back in February. So just be kind of tracking that. But we'll see that bar at our introduction at the January meeting.
And I believe it would be appropriate for each and every one of the directors to take a look at the drafting on the anti-racist policy, because this is huge work, and it's my hope that we are transparent and thoughtful and communicative without breaking OPMA, and get input back into both staff, and Director Hampson is one of the co-authors of that. But let's make sure we don't dump that on to CNI, that we all own it, and that we get our questions answered, that we have our concerns answered, and that we operationalize it.
President Harris, do you know which,
Yes, ma'am.
which meeting that was presented for, so we can find the draft?
And or we can ask staff to send it out to us as an attachment. Please.
Just going through the minutes yesterday, I think it would have been presented at the November meeting.
That's
I think
my
that's when people had a
recollection
chance
as well,
to
but
review
let's
it.
pull it out, elevate it, and make sure that we are arm in arm on this one. It is way too important to sit back. Okay, well, last but never least, I was the acting chair for Audit and Finance on Monday, and it was a robust meeting, and directors Mack and Hampson joined us. We had the usual reports out from the finance team and CFO Berge, etc. We also heard from Amy Fleming, our extraordinarily gifted accounting director. And we heard as well from the McGilvra principal and Michael Stone, director of grants, on whether or not to accept over $350,000 of PTSA money to supplement their staffing levels. And it was a rich and robust and frankly extraordinarily painful conversation. It has been moved to intro. It came out of ANF for consideration to have what I expect to be a difficult, thoughtful conversation in terms of PTSAs, PTOs, booster clubs, etc., buying staff because our friends in the legislature have not met the mandates for staffing, for truly appropriate school services. So we'll get to that on the agenda. I also need to read the announcement from Andrew Medina, the Director of Internal Audit. As folks know, we, the board, have 2 employees, Superintendent Denise Juneau and the Internal Auditor, Andrew Medina. And he has policy requirements to report out, and we have, and properly so, transparency requirements. Board Procedure 6550BP Internal Audit requires an announcement of completed internal audits. At the Audit and Finance Committee Chair for December, I am announcing that at the December 3rd Quarterly Audit and Finance Committee meeting, the Office of Internal Audit presented 2 internal audit reports: Special Education, the Sustainability of the Corrective Action Plan, and Alternative Subcontractor Selection Process. All findings and recommendations are discussed at a public Audit and Finance Committee meeting, and the completed reports are available online at the Office of Internal Audit's public webpage. Click on Departments and Services. Under the Directory tab, please click on Internal Audit. We also closed 25 plus open audit items, and that is cause for celebration. It is a robust system. Our internal auditor and his department are nationally renowned for this work, and it's important that we pay attention to it because I assure you the voters in our community does. Moving on to Executive Committee this morning. Again, rich and robust, sometimes a little bit rowdy, and I am in favor of that. We met from 8 to 10. We got out 2 minutes early, I'm here to tell you. And we heard from the new PASS Executive Director. One of the things we did 2 years ago is we invited our labor partners in to speak with us, to have conversation. PASS stands for, acronym foul, busted. Well done, thank you. The Principals Association of Seattle Schools. And that includes our assistant principals as well. And one of the things we talked about this morning is changing the language so that we don't necessarily say principals, assistant principals, we say leadership teams. And it was a rich and robust conversation, and she played a distinct role that might well have been misinterpreted out in blog and Facebook land at the Loyal Heights Elementary School issues, and having an opportunity to ask questions and to parry back and forth about things that matter to all of us without being under the guise of collective bargaining negotiations, which we as a board have to stay the heck out of. And we also talked about the fact that we're losing some assistant principals to other districts and what a shame that is, and leadership paths, if you will. Anyway, I am very pleased by the results of these conversations, and I think it can only help us. We did miss the current past president, Garfield High School Principal Ted Howard III, because he had a death in the family, and we wish him very well and hope to hear back from him soon. Talked a lot about the retreat. We talked some about the strat plan. So stay tuned, to be continued. Any other good of the order committee report outs? Seeing none? Madam, the floor is yours. Student comments.
Thank you. First, I would like to say good evening to all the school board directors and to Superintendent Juneau. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I would like to take this time to talk about the Skills Center program. We have a number of different programs that are offered to high school students during the school year and the summer in a variety of different subjects and skills. I would like to take the next few minutes to highlight a few of these programs and to tell you what these classes are working on and any concerns they may have. In case you are not familiar with the Skills Center, they offer classes in nursing assistance taught at West Seattle High School, construction trades taught at both Ingram and Rainier Beach High Schools, firefighting and emergency medical services taught at Washington Middle School and the Skills Center building, aerospace science and technology taught at Rainier Beach, administrative medical office assistants taught at Lincoln High School, careers in education taught at Franklin High School, automotive technology taught at Washington Middle School and the Skills Center building, culinary arts taught at Rainier Beach, health sciences and medical assistance taught at the John Marshall building, maritime vessel operations taught at the Seattle Maritime Academy in Ballard, media arts taught at Seattle World Schools, and video game animation and programming taught at the John Marshall building. In our nursing program, taught at West Seattle High School by Megan McQuaid, students are learning about medical terms, anatomy and physiology, diseases and disease processes, HIV, AIDS, and bloodborne pathogen training. Students also learn healthcare, basic life support, and CPR. During the nursing course, students also complete their clinical at Providence Mont St. Vincent over 5 weeks in the spring, where they work hands-on with patients, caregivers, CNAs, which are certified nursing assistants, and nurses at the assisted living facility. Students in the program recently also went to the Gates Foundation to learn how students can help with world health concerns. In our Careers in Education class, which is the class that I am taking, and which is offered at Franklin High School by Dr. Janae Simone, students learn about child development and different child development theorists, as well as different teaching methods used in the classroom. We have also learned about classroom management. Students learn how to properly read out loud to students and use technology such as overhead projectors. Recently, students went on an observation to South Shore Elementary School to observe classrooms in a variety of grade levels, from pre-K to 8th grade. We watched teachers in their classes and witnessed firsthand the different teaching techniques used in the classroom. In the new year, students will get to put their knowledge to the test and assist at an elementary school working with teachers and students in the classroom. We also have a construction trades class taught at Ingram and Rainier Beach High School by Stephanie Colbert. Last month at a careers and technical education conference, one of their students, Emmanuel Thomas, presented about construction trades. He talked about the class, about how the class has really taught him about leadership and teamwork. The class also has taught him about the importance of building things that can last, things that people can use for a long time. This perfectly represents the Skills Center program and what it's all about. These classes are meant to teach students about leadership and building their leadership skills. These programs are also meant to try and help students find a future profession that they are passionate about and get them prepared for college and life outside of high school. In our Fire Science and EMS program, taught by Jack Greaves at Washington Middle School and the Skills Center building, some recent events from this program include students meeting at the Seattle Fire Department's Joint Training Facility once a week to practice fireground skills. Another special event coming up for this program is traveling to the Washington State Fire Academy in May for a live training day. This is a day for students to see what it is like to fight actual fires and to utilize the skills they have been practicing all year round. In addition to some of the positive learning going on, I was asked to report about any concerns that the students are experiencing. The main one across all of the classes offered is about transportation. We've experienced times when cabs did not come for students, or they came even though they didn't need to. I know the Skills Center is working on improving transportation. This is very important because without reliable transportation between home schools and schools where the Skills Center classes are held, students will be reluctant to sign up. One additional concern brought on by the Fire Science and EMS program is the lack of credit equivalencies. Currently, firefighting students only earn about 3.0 occupational ed credits for class, when students in other fire and EMS programs in the area are earning lab science and PE credits as well. In closing, I have had a very positive experience in my time with Teaching Academy. The class that I'm taking, Careers in Education, has helped me to better understand many of the components that go into working in education. This class has also helped reinforce my desire to work in early childhood education. The class is very small, which helps the instructor better know how we learn and allows her to build relationships with all of us. I really appreciate you taking the time to hear what I have to say about a program that I feel has been very beneficial for students, and I hope this program will continue to run and be funded for the foreseeable future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spott. Mr. Goldsman, could you stand up and wave, please? You are the principal of the Seattle Skills Center. And 2 or 3 weeks ago, the time runs together, we had quite the impressive meeting for CTE with a great many community leaders down at the Seattle World Trade Center. And both myself and Superintendent Junot double-dog dared them to sign up, to sign all their employees up as mentors, and to partner with us because they are competing for terrific employees citywide, countywide, statewide, United States and international. And if they're going to recruit those kind of folks, then we need to be ready to meet that need. A couple of personal questions for you, and feel free to pass if you like. What are your plans? You are in what year in school?
I am a senior.
You are a senior. Do you know what you're doing next year and how you're going to get there?
I will be taking great advantage of the Seattle Promise opportunity and hopefully either going to South Seattle or Seattle Central Community College to earn my AA degree. And then I am hoping to transfer to a four-year university where I will hopefully get my bachelor's in teaching. And
Clover Cod, you know where she lives. Get her signed up now. And please do introduce yourself to the folks sitting at the wall. You can hire yourself a mentor tonight. You can hire yourself the best and the brightest to help you succeed beyond your wildest imagination, and these people will not turn you down. And if they do, come chat with us. Okay, thanks very much. And like I say, please stay on the dais. Please push back and ask questions as though you were elected to do so. You're here in a representative capacity, and you have certainly represented our students very, very well.
thank you.
Okay. Okay, Roman 6, business action items, consent agenda. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Yes, you do. I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Approval of the consent agenda has been moved and seconded. Do directors have any items they would like removed from the consent agenda that will be placed then back on the action calendar? Director Mack, please.
I just want my confetti from the dais because most of them are final acceptance.
And you will lead the round of applause should this pass. Madam Chair of Ops. Director DeWolf, did you have anything that you wish to remove? You look
No, I'm
ready
just
to go.
Roaring ready to go.
Okay. Going once, going twice. All those in favor of passing the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The consent agenda has passed. That is your first vote.
One of thousands.
Y'all are going to make me work for it tonight, aren't you?
What's your last one?
You know what they say about paybacks. Okay. We now move to the election of board officers. I'm turning the gavel over to Superintendent Junot, who presides statutorily over this as per state statute. The floor is yours.
This is what she passes on to the new person. So, I'm going to hide it. Before I open the floor for nominations, I would like to review the election process. For each officer position, president, vice president, and member at large, I will take nominations from the board. A second is not required for the nomination, but one can be made. After all the nominations are made for a position, there will be an opportunity for directors to provide comment before voting. After comments have been concluded, the board will vote for each position in the order the nominations were made. By law and board policy, the voting will be conducted by a roll call vote. The voting will conclude at the point when one nomination gets 4 or more votes. After the president has been elected, we will move on to the vice president and then the member at large. In summary, for each position there will be nominations, then discussion, then voting. At the conclusion of the election process for all 3 positions, each new officer will have an opportunity to provide remarks. Nominations are now in order for the office of president.
I nominate Zachary DeWolf.
I second that nomination.
Are there other nominations for president? Other nominations? If there are no more nominations, I close the nominations for president. Would any directors like to make comments at this time?
Can I?
You're at the end.
Oh, God. Sorry.
I'll make I would just like to make a short comment. My predecessor, Jill Geary, had many wonderful things to say about her experience working with Zach DeWolf. I've known him for his entire 7 years that he's been in Seattle due to familial connections, but I think the most important word and what is going to be really relevant in the year to come and why I'm supporting him as president is collaborative. And I mean that in all sincerity, whether it's us collaborating together as board members with staff leadership, with elected officials, both local and state, I think it's the most apt and important characteristic that he will bring to the table, among many others.
Ms. Wilson-Jones, please call the roll for the vote for Director DeWolf.
Director DeWolf,
Aye.
Director Hampson,
Aye.
Director Hersey,
Aye.
Director Mack,
Aye.
Director Rankin,
Aye.
Director Rivera-Smith,
Aye.
Director Harris.
Aye.
The nomination of Director DeWolf has passed unanimously.
Congratulations on your election as President, Director DeWolf. Thank you so much.
Does he stay in the same seat? Or does
He
move?
gets to decide. He is now the decider of all things. Nominations are now in order for the office of Vice President.
For the office of Vice President, I would be really pleased to nominate Chandra Hampson.
Are there other nominations for Vice President?
I will second that.
Other nominations? If there are no more nominations, I close the nominations for Vice President. Would any directors like to make any comments at this time?
Oh, I was just going to say, with Director DeWolf as president, I think we have, in the two of them, we'll have a good balance of the collaborative process, the knowledge of Seattle schools, the connections in the community, and what Chandra really brings as a strong, or Director Hampson, is the really strong fiscal skills. And I think her perspective on the executive board will be really, really important to keep us within well targeted towards our goals of fiscal responsibility and keeping equity and students furthest from educational justice always at the forefront in every decision.
Just start talking?
Yeah,
Oh,
go ahead.
got it.
Director DeWolf.
Thank you, Superintendent Juneau. I think the thing that, particularly in this process about thinking about this role, what was really kept coming back to me was our strategic plan. And I've really been grateful for Superintendent Juneau, but even in just the last few weeks and having meetings here with some extra free time, everybody I talk to ties their work back to the strategic plan more explicitly than I've heard ever. And I just recognize that Director Hampson was played a pivotal role in the creation and development of that strategic plan as a community member. And I think both that commitment to that, her commitment to equity, and her deep understanding of both fiscal and that world will be a great asset. And I think as far as wonkiness for ops, I think Hampson certainly occupies the role of wonkiness when it comes to audit and finance, and so those are that's the type of mind that I think we'll be really grateful to have here. So,
I'll keep my comments general. I would just like to say how excited I am moving forward, especially again thinking of our strategic plan, to have leadership that reflects our shared values of reaching our students that are furthest away from educational justice. And what a clear message this sends, especially to our Indigenous communities, that we are now our district led by 3 members of Native communities, and I am just really excited about that. I think that there's something to be said for that. I think that that's something we're celebrating, and I really am excited about what this means for our district and what this means for our students.
Ms. Wilson-Jones, please call the roll for the vote for Director Hampson.
Director Hampson,
Yay.
Director Harris, aye. Director Hersey,
Proudly aye.
Director Mack,
Aye.
Director Rankin, aye. Director Rivera-Smith, aye. Director DeWolf.
aye.
The nomination of Director Hampson has passed unanimously.
Congratulations on your election as Vice President, Director Hampson.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I also just want to echo Director Hersey's comments about how proud these last two votes have really made me, and I think should make Seattle to be in a city named after a chief, and to be on Duwamish land, and the acknowledgements and sitting under this sign, and just thinking about the historic moment of this event tonight and the election of the leadership to lead this district. I couldn't be more proud to be on this dais with the vote that just happened. So thank you. Now, nominations are now in order for the office of the member at large who serves with the president and vice president on the executive committee. Director Mack.
I'd like to nominate Director Harris.
Second.
Are there other nominations for member at large? Other nominations? If there are no more nominations, I close the nominations for member at large. Would any directors like to make any comments at this time? Director DeWolf.
I think what is most exciting about thinking about having Director Harris as part of the executive committee in this role was a really prime example of our working relationship this morning at our executive committee. What is really beautiful about this board is we come to this from different experiences and identities and values and ideologies and understandings and all these things that make us unique. And even at the times that we have disagreement, we can still leave those meetings just with full respect, tons of humor and sass, and still committed to this work. So I think that bodes well for a positive working relationship on the executive committee, and I would be excited to support you.
Director Hersey.
One of the things that I appreciate especially about Director Harris is her ability to provide context to situations, especially as a new member of this board, understanding how we arrive to specific places in terms of when we're making decisions. That is imperative and it is crucial, and I am excited for our executive committee going forward.
Director Hampson.
A fundamental learning for me in my almost 50 years is it's coming is the importance of moving forward by not operating from a place of fear. And culturally, in the city of Seattle, it's something that I've struggled with over the years, that I believe that we do operate from a place of fear too much of the time. We are at a place in this city, in this district, in this country, and on this planet where we don't have the option of operating from a place of fear. And even when I have fundamental disagreements with Director Harris, I always appreciate that I don't have to be concerned about whether she's going to be coming from she's always coming from a brave space and is going to speak her mind, and I don't have to guess where she's coming from. And that saves us a heck of a lot of time in being able to push things forward. So it's very refreshing, very un-Seattle, and I appreciate it because I think it's a tone that we need to set, and our children deserve for us to take a stance for them.
Ms. Wilson-Jones, please call the roll for the vote for Director Harris.
Director Harris.
Aye.
Director Hersey.
Aye.
Director Mack.
Aye.
Director Rankin.
Aye.
Director Rivera-Smith.
Aye.
Director Hampson.
Aye.
Director DeWolf.
Aye.
The nomination of Director Harris has passed unanimously.
Congratulations on your election as member at large, Director Harris. I look forward to continue this service with you. Mr. President, I would like to report that the officers for the Board of Directors for 2020 are President DeWolf, Vice President Hampson, Member at Large Harris. And I would now like to invite our newly elected officers, beginning with the President, to offer any remarks they would like to make.
Thank you, Superintendent Junot. And thank you, my fellow directors, for your support. I don't necessarily want to belabor too much because obviously this is a business meeting, and so I want to focus there. But I think the two things that have come up for me as I'm thinking about this role, particularly one of the really important principles in Native culture is the 7 generations principle. And that says what we do now must create positive, sustainable, and meaningful solutions, not only just for today in the immediate, but for 7 generations into the future. And I don't want there to be any secrets about the lens in which I'm thinking, and that is a deeply important one, which is the 7 generations principle. And the only other thing I want to say is, as we head into this year, with certainly some things that I imagine we'll be able to celebrate that are great, and some of the challenging things that might feel stormy, I will continue to be committed deeply to our strategic plan, which says we will be centering Black and African American males and students from furthest from educational justice, and that will guide all of my decisions. So while it might seem like these are really tough decisions, the decisions for me are going to be very easy, because they will be about making sure we're doing things for the long term and making sure we're centering the students that are furthest from educational justice. And just the things I'm really excited to be working on are our student community workforce agreements. We'll have some recommendations later, early in the next year. Ethnic studies, the long and important process of implementing our advanced learning task force recommendations, working internally and with our partners around how do we be really thoughtful about LGBTQ inclusion in our curriculum, our anti-racism policy, expanding Indigenous languages, and honestly, expanding our green goals and commitments. And while I think it would be really easy to lean on the fact that we don't have money, we don't have time, it's really hard for us to do this as a district. At this rate, I don't believe we have any choice, and it is our I would say our sacred purpose in this next year to really be looking at ways that we can expand our green goals and commitments. And I think the other last thing is as educational experts in the city, I'm really looking forward to thinking about things intersectionally. And just because we are the educational experts here doesn't mean we can't advocate at the city and the county level for policies that will continue to support the root cause and the root issues that our students are afflicted by, whether it's housing or transit. So I'm really just looking forward to, while it's going to be a long and challenging, and as President Harris can surely share stories, I'm really excited to be leading at this time. So thank you all for your support.
Vice President Hampson.
I see we only have a few minutes before comment. I know we want to stay on time, so I will keep this short. Also, we have a retreat on Saturday, which community members are welcome to attend. I have attended many as a non-board member, and so encourage people to listen in. And I'm looking forward to having collaborative discussions with my colleagues, and so I want to wait to discuss any real focal points until we've had a chance to have that discussion. That being said, I tell my girls every morning when they leave for school to be brave for their ancestors, and related to my comments about Director Harris and why I'm excited to lead with her and with Director DeWolf and all of the rest of you and all of the staff we always have to remind ourselves of that in every decision and everything that we do. We can all look back at countless moments in our lives when we weren't brave, and we don't forget those moments. We may not always like the outcome of when we were brave, but we don't generally regret having taken a brave step and taken a chance on trying to make things better for our communities. So I hope that will be something that is proven out in my actions and in my work on this board, is that I am demonstrably brave for my ancestors, that I'm making hard decisions and supporting this district in all of us. This is the Coast Salish territory is a canoeing place, and it's all about pulling together. And that's what this board and this district needs to do. And so I want to honor that, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be on this land of the Coast Salish people, and we'll be keeping that in mind as I move forward in this role. And I'm grateful to all of you for your support. It means a lot.
Member at Large Harris.
It may shock you that I might have run out of words. I'm the daughter of a trailblazer. My mother was a pilot in World War II. She stopped her doctorate in education when she had me, number 6, and I'm going to borrow former Director Pinkham's line about they kept going till they got perfection. And my brothers and sisters will pay me back at Christmas for that. But I have been extraordinarily blessed by mentors in my life who have guided me, who have coached me, who have told me to follow my heart and to put others first. And that whatever you do, do it in a team sport, speak from your heart, and work your backside off. And I'm really excited about these next 2 years and the next year in specific. We have a hell of a bench up here, and that's very exciting to me. And to the folks in our staff here in the room and our 11,090 others, game on. Let's go do amazing work together. Thank you.
I would note that while the new officers will take their roles immediately, for the sake of logistics this evening, directors will remain in their current seats for the remainder of tonight's meeting. And I will now turn the gavel over to our new board president, Director DeWolf, to take the meeting into a 3-minute recess.
Thank you. I want you to actually walk it over.
I am going
Okay,
to.
good.
Make her work for it.
Oh, I was just her. Thank you. Okay, we're taking a recess.
For
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Public testimony begins at 5:30 on the dot.
We'll make sure that they have ample time for that portion as well. So, Ms. Scheck, please read off the testimony.
First up for public testimony, we have Kimberly Hernandez Cortez, followed by Chris Jackins and Alex Zimmerman.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Kimberly Hernandez, and I go to Tube South, but I do Skill Center at Ingram for Construction Trades. And Skill Center is an amazing program that helps students develop skills that they can use in the future. When I first signed up for Skill Center for construction class, I was a bit intimidated because it's a male-dominated field, and being a woman, you know, we always hear things like, oh, women can't do that, and you just don't see many women in construction. But when I first walked in on my first day, I was welcomed with open arms. I remember within our first week, we learned how to use loud power saw machines that I would never have imagined to use. The class has helped me become more confident in myself, you know. I am not scared of saws or, things like that. And I've met many great people at Ingram. I've made a lot of friends, and including my teacher, Mr. Wenzel, who has gotten to know every student individually because we have a small class. We have a small class of less than about 12, and that just makes it more easier for everyone. I felt like I took a risk going from Tube South all the way to Ingram because I've never been to Ingram in my life, and I was a bit intimidated too, but I felt it really pushed me to know my boundaries and just get to know a new place. I am very glad that I signed up to do Skills Center, and although There isn't much, advertisement towards Skill Center. I had to find it on my own by browsing online, so if it would be more like put out there. And also I'd like to mention transportation was an issue for me, so if that could also work, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Chris Jackins, Box 84063, Seattle 98124. Wish to welcome the 3 newly elected board directors. On the final acceptance of the Arbor Heights Elementary Construction Project, 4 points. Number 1, the report does not analyze the effects of the project on racial imbalance at schools in the area. Number 2, final acceptance was delayed due to installation issues with the grass playfield. It was determined that the field was not installed per design, and the field was rebuilt, including sections of the under drainage. Was the cost of rebuilding the field covered by the warranty? Number 3, I helped people file an appeal of the environmental review of this project. Until the appeal hearing, it was not disclosed that the flooding had been occurring in residents' front yards south of the school. Number 4, for the last 20 years, district construction projects have included a public meeting to address environmental review. The district is now dropping these meetings. These actions directly contradict transparency. On the Spanish instructional materials adoption in the Southeast Elementary attendance area boundary changes. 4 points. Number 1, the board approved both of these actions on November 20th, 2019. Both actions appear to violate state law. Number 2, I asked that the board quickly entertain a motion to reverse these actions. Number 3, failing to address violations of state law can be grounds for recall from office. Number 4, when Marysville school board members faced a recall a few years ago, they cited legal advice from their general counsel. The judge did not accept this defense. Please quickly take action on these issues. Thank you.
Alex? Next up, we have Christine Shigaki, followed by Wilhelmina Desortinos, and then Brian Terry.
Can never deal with this microphone very well. Hi, Christine Shigaki. I'm parent of 2 in SPS. Congratulations to the duly elected board members, and thank you all for your service. You guys put a lot of hours in and appreciate it. I want to mention that to achieve true equity, I'm asking the district to be accountable for the following. Please pay attention to the Southeast, where most people of color reside. Since we are the most diverse community, we have a very diverse needs of services. And so please consider how all of our kids will be served and how the diverse needs can be all met. I don't feel that TAF is incompatible with HCC, and so can we have both to serve all of our kids and our divergent needs? I'm also asking for calibration of class offerings across the district, including robust math and reading in those early grades. HC services at every school is a great long-term goal, and that should be something that we should do, definitely. But removing the HCC in the Southeast is, in my way, inequitable, especially for those of color. I would ask you for better outreach and appropriate testing and access for those farthest from educational justice, and hiring of more racially diverse teaching staff for people of color, teachers and role models that students can identify matters. For my child here. For those of us who are of color, it is very difficult to find a school where we can have both diverse community and academically rigorous education. And so in order to achieve true equity, everyone's voices are important. All people from all walks of life need to be heard. And as an Asian American, though many have come a long way, we still have a glass ceiling and deserve to have equal voice at the table. So please hear our voices. I am also asking the district for transparency, trust, and true engagement with your community. With the possible opportunity of TAF at Washington, the information is limited to families where little information is available to grasp a full picture of the program. And most importantly, teachers have been wrongfully treated and having their voice minimized. Families of HCC have been vilified. So please consider all the recommendations of ALTF and a solution where all kids could be served well, true engagement and respect for your teachers and greater community. And
Thank you,
diverse,
Christine. Please conclude your remarks.
Okay, sorry. Diverse voices make us stronger and not weaker. Thank you.
Good evening, and congratulations to the newly elected board members. My name is Wilhelmina De Los Trinos, and I'm here because, just as all of you, all we want is an equitable and thriving gifted education solution for Seattle. And so I'm here today to provide my perspective from 3 different viewpoints. Number 1, as a parent of a 5th grader in the highly capable program at Fairmount Park Elementary in West Seattle. Number 2, as a Seattle Public Schools graduate, elementary, middle, and high school, Garfield High School, class of 1994. And then number 3, as a senior director for Kaiser Permanente, Washington, who built our equitable and inclusion diversity programs to reduce health inequities in healthcare, which we are the model of the healthcare system today. I believe some of the learnings that I found building the equity, inclusion, diversity initiatives in my line of work and my experience as a parent and as a Seattle Public Schools student I am hopeful will be beneficial to you. Number 1, increase access. I believe that by eliminating or reducing advanced learning services, especially in the South End, is just going to create even greater inequities in opportunity for advanced learning. Case in point, myself, as an immigrant with parents who did not speak English as their native language, living in West Seattle, we didn't know anything about a highly capable program. We did not have access to it. The only reason I found out about it was I eventually, because of busing in the 1980s and 90s in Seattle Public Schools, was sent to Garfield High School because there wasn't enough Asians in their community. That was the only way that I learned about the highly capable program. My parents fought to try to get me into those programs and with that cohort, which then leads me to number 2. Again, in the line of work, what I do, what's important is peer group. Putting peer groups together to then push each other. We do this with our diabetes programs, our heart disease programs, and that's what I'm saying is what happened to me and enabled me to be successful in my line of work
Please
today.
conclude your remarks.
Again, number 3 is, I forgot. Hold on, let me open my.
Thank you.
Nope.
Your 2 minutes have ended. I
Okay.
would ask that you please conclude your remarks.
Improving communication. My ask is getting the marketing out there so that more people learn about the programs that are offered. And then finally,
Can we please invite
pilot.
the next person up? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Brian Terry for public testimony, followed by Emily Wheeler, and then Sarah Mohammed and Famo Isa.
Good evening and welcome to the new school board members. Integrated classrooms offer a profound benefit for underprivileged students. It has been estimated that spending 12 years in an integrated classroom is enough to help Black students completely overcome the Black-white education attainment gap. Despite this, we have faced an uphill battle to desegregate our advanced learning classrooms. This is not a new problem. We faced the same challenges in Brown versus the Board of Education. Then, as now, we told ourselves that Black students, due to their economic circumstances, could not keep up with white students and would slow the class down. And they would be best served in segregated classrooms, which would make it easier for teachers to teach and for students to make friends. I hope that you will take a hard look at the data and see what the Supreme Court saw in 1954. The undeniable evidence that Black students served in segregated classrooms receive a significantly inferior education. Separate is not equal. The Supreme Court warned that segregation may affect the hearts and minds of students in a way unlikely to ever be undone. Furthermore, we must acknowledge that many highly capable students find it difficult to make friends with kids who are different. It is vital that we teach these students this critical life skill by giving them ample opportunities to interact with a diverse group of peers in integrated classrooms. Please find ways to eliminate racial segregation in our advanced learning program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Emily?
Emily Wheeler, 2 students in Seattle Public Schools, one currently at Washington Middle School. I've provided just a quick synopsis. It took me a little bit to find this information, but the point of this is that Washington Middle School is your most diverse HCC program, and eliminating that program is really just going to increase the lack of diversity in the HCC group as a whole throughout the city. So what I'd like to do is, I have a couple of questions. First question is, why was TAF selected for Washington Middle School? The other thing I provided is the map of the middle schools. There are 11 other middle schools in this city that could have been chosen for this program that do not have an HCC program. So that needs to be figured out. Why are we targeting Washington Middle School, which already has a special needs population, and it doesn't really fit? I'm an architect, and what I do all day, every day is work with all sorts of diverse people, all sorts of diverse situations and challenges, and look for solutions. I do not see a solution where TAF works at Washington Middle School with HCC. So, if you guys are gonna move forward with TAF in Washington Middle School, you're gonna eliminate HCC on the south end. And if you're gonna eliminate HCC on the south end, you're gonna eliminate it citywide. You are not doing this to the south end. We're not having it. If you have an issue with the racial makeup at Washington Middle School, you can look at this map and wonder who drew these boundaries. So maybe look at your maps and look at what's going on. If you take HCC out of Washington Middle School, you're also gonna have a population shift of those 300 and some students. And where are they gonna go? They're gonna go to their neighborhood schools because that's what you're saying they need to do. Well, now you've got a gap of 300 kids at Washington Middle School. There needs to be a lot more thought put into this and a lot more equity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Mohammed and Famo Isa?
magacayga Sahre Maxamed waaye, gabadhaydana waxaa la dhahaa Xaliima Siciid Shiko. waxay aadaa iskuulka oo maxaa magaciisa iskuul Fairman Park. Then she's 5th grade waaye.
My name is Sarah Mohammed, and my daughter, she's going Fremont Park, and she's a 5th grade.
Gabadhayda waxay ku baastay 2nd grade markay ahayd. Markay baastay marka waxa la iskuulkay dhiganaysay oo waxa laygu dhahay ma dhigan karto oo ciyaalada xoogaa bay ka horeysaa. Markaas maxay ahayd iskuuladii kale markaan ablay gareeyana waqti bay igu qaadatay 3 sanaan sugaayay. Marka hadeerna waxaa u baahnay gabadhayda iyo ciyaalada kale oo la midka ah in medicine oo kaleeto naloo ku sameeyo, naloo ku daayo programkaas oo kale.
My daughter, she's passed the test HCC, so she's eligible when she's a 2nd grade, but unfortunately in the advanced learning department, they didn't contact correctly. But when I find out, it takes me 3 years. And also my daughter, she's taking again when she's a 4th grade and the test, and she passed again. Then I came down myself in the district to find out. Instead, the early learning to high capable department, instead they contacted me. They didn't contact me. My daughter, she's passing the 2nd grade, but now she's attending as a 5th grade in Fremont Park. She lost in 3 years. Then I'm asking the district to better communication and also to get equal opportunity and all the children. one she's having, for example, she says in West Seattle Elementary School, it's 400 kids enroll over there. I believe myself 250 students in high capable, but somehow the teachers, they're not making referral, and also my community have a gap in that area to find out all those information and their children, if they are capable, where to go. And we need a better job as a district and also advanced learning to communicate the parents and where to go and how to find in this program. And also,
hadeerna waxaan rabnaa sida oo gabadhayda markay aado sida Maricin oo kaleeto middle schoolka inuu noo haysto ama kan oo maxay ahayd Deni oo kaleeto in loo sameeyo saasaan rabnaa.
then I would like to see to have all high capable ACC and schools is our attendance area, same like the Madison Middle School, Denny Middle School, and when they go high school, if we leave West Seattle, then our feeding schools and attendance area schools, same like the chief cell, then our children to be continuing and to have HCC in those schools and around them.
gabadhayda haddana hadeer waxay dhigataa program kale aadaa oo Rainier Scholarna way dhigataa marka iskuulada waxaan rabnaa in macnaha programkaas naloo ku daayo sida.
And also my daughter, she's going to another program, she enrolled other program, same like Rainier Scholar, and we would like to see all this kind of opportunity to get our children, because we have a lot of children, we speak second language at home, but our children, they are very talented. We would like to see to get all those opportunity. Some other children, they need to be deserved and to go high CC classes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up for public testimony, we have Suresh Chamugan, followed by Manuela Sly and Christine Vigue.
Hi, my name is Suresh Chanmugam. I have 3 children enrolled in Seattle Public Schools. In 1999, when I moved to Seattle to work as a software engineer, I was alarmed at the lack of diversity in our region's technology industry. And in 2001, I found an incredible nonprofit, Technology Access Foundation, that was working to bring STEM education to minority youth in the Central District through an after-school program. And I decided to volunteer 12 hours a week at TAF throughout the entire 2001-2002 school year, helping students with their software engineering classroom assignments. And I was deeply impressed with the positive impact that TAF had on their lives. Flash forward a couple of decades, I have 3 children enrolled in Seattle Public School System. We live in the Central District, in the Thurgood Marshall and Washington Middle attendance areas. I have a son, Podrick, who is currently a 3rd grader who was identified as highly capable. But I've chosen for him to continue attending a general education class at Thurgood Marshall, even though there's an HCC class that he's eligible to attend a couple of doors down the hallway. And the same standardized tests that initially identified him as highly capable continue to identify him as highly capable, which is an amazing testament to the great work his teachers have done at Thurgood Marshall to support students in their classroom with diverse abilities and needs. I know that comments around personal matters are not allowed, but I just want to shout out to the 4 Gs, Ms. Greisen, Ms. Gorder, Ms. Glass, and Ms. Guillermo. So anyway, I appreciate that the state grants special education status to highly capable students, but I believe the best way for our school system to deliver those special services is in integrated and diverse classrooms. I'm also concerned that Seattle schools are deeply segregated and have significant achievement gaps between white and African American students. I believe that the highly capable cohort, of which fewer than 2% of students are African American, perpetuates a divided and inequitable education system. I fully support bringing STEM by TAF to Washington Middle School, and I'm really excited that my 3 children might have the opportunity to attend a STEM by TAF class.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Manuela Sly. I'm Seattle Council PTSA President. I'm here, number 1, to welcome the new board members, Ms. Lisa Rivera-Smith, Chandra Hampson, and Lisa Rankin. Seattle Council PTSA is committed to advocating for all students and bringing family voices to you. ultimately you make the decisions. So I'm looking forward to meaningful collaboration and support, but again, the decisions are made by you, so I hope that you listen to all voices, especially those that are usually not at the table. I wanted to say that, as many of us know, the Advanced Learning Task Force just finished their recommendations yesterday. So we're looking forward to learning what this will look like as we move towards a more equitable system. More than anything, we're here to keep you accountable. So again, partnership, but accountability. Students, families are watching. I also want to say that I'm very excited that the strategic plan goal of reading at grade level by 3rd grade is coming to light. It's very important to me personally and also as a leader. But I have to say this again, unless dyslexia is properly screened and served, we're setting 20% of the students to failure. Please don't do that. We're also including the African American males that we're focusing when we talk about the strategic plan. Special Education PTA is looking to form an advisory committee, and we need your support. Whether it's an advisory committee to the superintendent or the school board, we need support to do that kind of work. Last but not least, I want to talk about the anti-racist policy that I know is in the works. Seattle Council PTSA is in full support of the anti-racist work that is much needed in our district. We're looking forward to that. This will look like at the district level, building level, and classroom level, and how staff, leaders, and teachers that will be doing this work will be supported. This work is hard, it's exhausting, I know, I've been there, but we have extremely talented educators willing to do the work. So we need your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christine Vigay, and I am the mother of 2 daughters who are adopted from mainland China, and they're 7th graders at Madison Middle School. They've been fortunate enough to be part of the HCC program since 2nd grade. One of the things that I would like to see and ask of the board is to increase the availability of the testing for kids across the school district. For me, it was quite a challenge. It kind of gets lost, and it's not very well easily recognized for how to take the test or how to apply, and it would be, I think, much better served for the community if it had a broader reach and a broader access to all students, and not just those whose parents and or so can recognize and actually go through the process of having those applications submitted. That's one thing I'd like to do. And then I'd also like to ask for transparency from the board that if you do get rid of the HCC program, what is your plan? How are you going to deal with these students who are considered highly capable? When my children were labeled as highly capable, I went to the principal of their local school. I asked, I don't want to move them. They have very good friends. It was a great environment for them. How are you going to address this? And it was an AOL labeled school. I mean, they were supposed to be able to address advanced learning. And she said, no, I don't know. We'll do it as can. We'll try and fit it in. There is no plan. So we had to make the decision to move. And my kids have been well served, but if you're going to desegregate, or going to get rid of this plan, what are you going to do with these children moving forward? And that is what I ask for transparency from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes the sign-up list for public testimony this evening.
We have now come to the board comments section of the agenda. And I wrote some notes. So I just want to offer, on behalf of the board, thank you to our student presenters from Media Middle School. Thank you to Jamie from Seattle Skills Center and our student speaker as well from Seattle Skills Center, and to all the folks for coming out and to speaking today to our board during public comment. We greatly appreciate that. So I think given just the interest of time, and I want to make sure folks get a break, that if we're speaking today during board comments, if it's pertaining to a topic that's coming up later, reserve that for that. But otherwise, please share now for your board comment portion. And if any board directors are interested in speaking first, let me know. Director Hersey.
I'll go ahead and knock out my comments. First off, thank you to everybody who has come and shared your thoughts with us. We greatly appreciate it. First, it's been a busy past couple of weeks for me personally, and I'm sure for the rest of our board directors as well. Directors Mack and DeWolf and I had a wonderful community meeting at the Capitol Hill Library this past weekend. I really love the aspect of these co-community meetings. I think for a couple of reasons. First, it's super fun to see you guys off of this dais. And then second, I think that our constituents really appreciate it as well, especially when we have differing opinions on how we get to the shared desired end goal of some things, right? And I think that that gives us an opportunity not only to express ourselves in a way that might not necessarily be as comfortable from the dais, and it's a really awesome opportunity to be able to talk across communities as well. So looking forward to potentially having a co-community meeting with anybody that's interested. I'll find the space, I'll bring a pie, we'll have a good time. The next piece was, it was a pleasure visiting Bryant Elementary's PTSA last night along with directors Hampson and Rankin. We had a thorough and robust conversation around many topics, but especially how is our district thinking about how are we serving and making our spaces more accessible to our differently abled families and students and their parents. And it just offers such a wonderful opportunity to think about what pieces are we missing, right? Because education is so focused in some areas, but then there are these fringes that make us really aware about how things are actually happening in the operational pieces as well. And it's just a great reminder that, you know, we're not only representatives of our respective districts, but we're also representatives of our city. And being able to travel up north and travel, you know, west and whatnot is a really cool opportunity, and I highly recommend that we all get a chance to bop around a little bit as much as we can. I got a chance to stop by Rainier Beach High School last week to be a part of the laptop deployment. I am so proud to say that Rainier Beach is now a one-to-one school, and when we have a conversation about, you know, what does equity look like for our students, having access to technology and access to the learning and access to this wonderful thing we call the internet and various, you know, applications and things on our devices that go beyond a cell phone is fantastic, and I'm just really glad that, you know, I was able to be a part of it. We had some students that were a little shaky about it, but then we had some other students that were just thrilled to have a device that they can take home and to use for whatever aspects of their learning. The next piece is congratulations to SEA and their new leadership. Mr. Tamayo and Ms. Jimerson were elected president, elected president and vice president respectively. I'm really excited to build even stronger relationships with our educator partners and look forward to getting to know both of them better. Wrapping up here, I got to stop by Cleveland High School today and spend a little bit of time talking with students, a lot about nutrition, a lot about what does it mean to be a Cleveland High School student, and it was just a wonderful environment. The work that Principal Breland and his staff over there are doing is just absolutely amazing. You can feel the energy walking around that school about how much kids love being there. I even actually saw some students get Uber Eats delivered for their lunch and had some really, you know, great conversations about what nutrition looks like for those students. Today was a particularly good day. They had fried chicken sandwiches, but they did give us a lot of feedback on what they would like to see. Pizza was at the top of the list, but also right under pizza was more raw vegetables, right? More opportunities for our students. One student specifically really appreciated the celery, another appreciated the broccoli. So I'm really excited about, you know, the grant that we just received to purchase more fresh fruits and vegetables. And, you know, these are coming directly from the mouths of our kids. Well, I guess also going into the mouths of our kids. But I think that we should really be pushing forward and thinking about how are we even expanding that further? A salad bar in every school, even though we've already got that except for one. And last but not least, we have a CPI meeting coming up, a community meeting on January 13th. CPI, I'm getting to it. I don't actually know what CPI stands for, but I know that it is dealing specifically with student restraints. Can somebody educate me on the proper acronym for CPI? Intervention. Crisis prevention intervention. You heard it there first. So we are going to be having a community meeting for folks to come and learn about when it is appropriate to and when it is inappropriate to use restraints for students to make sure that they are safe not only for themselves but for others. I view this largely as an opportunity for our community to come together and for us to build trust and for us to also give an opportunity to be held accountable in situations where it might be necessary. So on January 13th, we are still hammering down the details. I know that I'm going to be in attendance. I believe Director DeWolf will be in attendance, and I hope to see, at least one other board director there. I mean, it's a publicly posted meeting. Does quorum count? I don't know.
We can always notice a quorum.
Great. Okay. Well, I hope to see all the folks there that would like to attend. Yeah, it's been a really great last couple of weeks, and I'm excited to have more opportunities to get out and meet with as many students and families as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hersey. Other folks? Director Hampson. Then Director Mack.
Good evening. Echoing Director Hersey's comments about our community meeting, during the campaign, Director DeWolf and I held a number of community meetings around specific topics, which is really informative and helpful. And I do agree that having the joint meetings is it's great. When I'm off in my meetings by myself, I often don't have as many people turn out. We had about 20 folks, and they all had, there was a variety of topics. There was a focus on some of the major hot topics that we're experiencing. But I really appreciate that everyone came out, was interested in sharing what their thoughts were and having conversations around them. Some of the stuff, and I just wanted to bring this forward kind of publicly because we heard it, but I think it's important for superintendent and staff to hear, the issues that were brought forward. There's a number of continued staffing allocation concerns at a number of schools, that there's overloaded classrooms at some places, and another school with getting the loss of a instructional aid for special education. I mean, I don't know how these specific cases are, do they need mitigation, do they not? I forwarded those on to staff to kind of take a look into whether or not those are places that could or should have some support on the staffing allocation. We also had someone talking about and bringing up the issue again around dual language pathway in the Southeast, that no one selected to go to Rainier Beach for the pathway, and that many of those students are this year in Cleveland and Franklin, and so then we have this issue of those students are there might be enough of a cohort to provide that higher level language courses, and maybe I'm wondering, that was the question of whether or not we should consider actually, even though the pathway's not there, providing that because there's enough students that warrant it. Ethnic studies and its implementation in different schools was brought up. There was just some parent questions around, I don't know what's happening. My kid came home with this stuff and I'm not opposed to it. There was no opposition really to the content. It was more like, I don't understand what this lesson is about. And around identity, there was some stuff that sounded a little sensitive that they had questions about. And so it sounded to me like a number of parents were more curious about the communication about these lessons and being informed ahead of time around these topics, not that they're in opposition to the content or what's going on, but that they just wanted to be more engaged in knowing that these lessons were coming forward. And then someone came and specifically brought up the issue of the reporting around restraint and isolation, and that we need to continue monitoring that. And of course, we had a number of folks there talking about highly capable and TAF and Washington and the whole system, and folks in support of integrating the program, folks stating concern around, as this previous speaker spoke to, is like, how are these students going to be served going forward? And I'm grateful that the Advanced Learning Task Force just came out with their recommendations. We haven't seen them yet. They haven't been completely published, but from what I've read so far, I understand that they're really robust and they have a lot of great suggestions. There are likely to be implications on student assignment going forward, and how, and one of the questions that I continue to have personally that I think we need to wrap our brains around is defining specifically what those services are so students know, regardless of what setting it is, whether or not it's in a cohort setting or not, what are those services? And that for me, I just keep hearing that question, that folks want advanced learning, they want access to it, they don't want it restricted, and they also want to know exactly what that is and how to access it. And that I just feel like that's really across the board. And so just wanted to echo what I'm hearing from folks. So, and I also just want to say that I'm really looking forward to this next year. We have got a lot of great things set in motion with the capacity enrollment and facilities master plan advisory committee launching. That advisory committee will help be the place for some of these challenging analyses and conversations around boundary changes in student assignment and capacity. That all of this, when we're talking about advanced learning and changing the models, it's going to impact our student assignment. We have new buildings coming online. It's going to impact boundaries. I appreciate the map that was brought forward, because how we draw boundaries, does have a racial component as well, and we have to be very thoughtful around that. So, as well as just to put out there again as well that it's been noticed and it's been sent out, but also there's a highly capable and racial equity, I hope I'm saying that correct, advisory committee that is also spinning up, and that's an ongoing advisory committee. So the community knows that that's been noticed and you can apply. It's on the Advanced Learning website, and look forward to folks getting engaged in that. And as always, thanks for coming out and to our community meeting. I don't have another one scheduled. The Executive Committee of the Whole for TAF, just for noticing, that is happening next Wednesday, where we'll have a full conversation around TAF, that proposal, the implications around the highly capable cohort that are being proposed, et cetera. So that's the next step in that process, is where that conversation happens. And
Thank you, Director Mack.
thank you.
Director Hampson, Director Harris after.
Wira ro chan jai hehu pi. Hizi kashi heza kishina hini kare wina ho chankaraj ra hinuka draidega hingaire na English raja Chandra hingaire na. That's me fumbling through saying, when I wrote this, it was going to be good afternoon because I thought we were going to do our comments earlier. Good afternoon, greetings to each and every one of you. My name is Hinuka Draidega, is the one they admire in Ho Chunk, and my English name is Chandra, which is actually not English, but Hindi, I believe. I'm going to make an effort to model speaking your language, because I am a strong believer in dual language and in honoring everyone's home language, their heritage language. I really appreciate the family that came and spoke through a translator, and I hope that we can work together as a board to find ways to make more communication from our non-English speaking families possible. I do believe that dual language is part of how we address that. I strongly believe that dual language is how we address many of our equity and community engagement issues, because of parents who don't know even what programs exist and don't necessarily have the ability to be involved in their students' education because they don't speak the language. For my community, it's a matter of preservation and trying to keep our language from dying. And it's a very active part of my tribal community back in Winnebago, Nebraska. And so I'm proud to speak that language here on this Coast Salish land, and hope that at some point maybe some of them will start watching me trying to, and then they'll send me messages and tell me how I'm messing it up. One of my aunties in particular will be correcting me especially when I go back this summer, and she'll be correcting my accent, and that's all good. And anybody who's had to learn language knows that that's a necessary part of the process. So I want to model again being brave and putting myself out there and doing the things that are really important. One of the things in terms of I won't speak to the specific things that are on the action item and intro agenda, but I do want to make a note that I believe that equity analysis, racial equity analysis and equity analysis in general is really critical for everything that we do. It is consistent with the strategic plan that we build up that muscle in this board, in this building, in our school buildings, in our classrooms, of asking that question of what is the racial equity analysis for every decision that we make. And as I go through the board action reports, aka BARS, I'm not super excited about what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of utilization of that particular mechanism, and knowing that our staff was very intentional about how they created that equity toolkit analysis model, that we need to do a better job. I'm going to be a stickler about that, and I hope the community will help me do that, because I know that many of you see things where that we are not going to see, about where the equity analysis isn't happening. There's always a deep equity analysis that can be done in all situations, and even if it is multiple steps removed from the action that we're taking up here on the dais, we need to be clear about what we have done as a building and articulate that in our board action reports. This is an opportunity for us to be able to talk about the equity work that is happening in our buildings and in our central office, and with our community partners. And some of that will be talked about later. We have all been very, very busy doing one-on-ones with staff as new board members, and having our first meetings. I have had the opportunity to be in community as well with directors Hersey and Rankin, in conjunction with one of our city council members and 3 of our state legislators. And a massive thank you to Samantha Fogg, a Bryant PTSA president, for pulling that together. How she's able to get all of us in the room just by asking, I don't know, but she's got this magic power to make that happen. And I can't tell you how important it is. I think it really set the stage for us 3 in particular as new school board members, that we are going to do this work together. We're going to hold the city accountable. They're going to hold us accountable. We're going to hold the state legislators accountable, and them us, but we're going to do it together. So that was really exciting. We did talk a lot about access. I learned a lot in terms of the backlog that we have in this city of families being able to access our buildings. I know it from close family friends, but when you hear about it in bulk, it's pretty stark in terms of the backlog of accessibility relative to our buildings. We also talked a lot about behavior. I call it mental health, but we also called it behavior health. We are very much at a crisis in the state of Washington, in this Seattle community, and I think that was one of the more important priorities for me that we talked about, and it's personal for me because I'm working with community students and community members that are actively trying to find services for their students and are not able to. We don't have anything in the way of residential programs here in this city, and very little even in the state to speak of. And so when a student is really in crisis, we're looking at truly sending them away. And I think that's the last thing that any community wants to be feeling. And this is, I have watched many community members throughout Seattle Public Schools pull together to try to find other solutions, and the reality is that right now that there are things that we just don't have the capacity to, and even in the state or neighboring states. And so we have a lot of work to do together to make sure that when we've exhausted all curricular and other support, special education support services in our buildings, that we have options in our communities. And we have to do that work together. I will be at McGilvra on Thursday. I'm going to do a tour, and then I'm going to attend the PTA meeting that they have there. And I'm glad to be doing that because they are bringing up very early the issue of large-scale PTA funding in buildings, and that's something that we tackled in audit finance as director. Thank you. Harris spoke to. And so I hope that others will engage with me. I don't have specific other community meetings set up yet, but I will, and I'm open to input about what that looks like, where I would like to spend, as Director Hersey said, time in all parts of the city, and also do it during different times of the day, because I think it's, for many people, it's something maybe they need to do during their lunch period, maybe they need to do it in the evening. So I'm open to being flexible and going to where my community members are to discuss these really important issues. It is going to be a very difficult conversation. And then I will be at, also on Thursday, I will be at the Native American Hachusetu Parent Advisory Committee meeting at Meany Middle School. And we have our annual event at Daybreak Star on, now I've forgotten the date, maybe superintendent knows. I think it's on the district calendar, but it's definitely on the Hachusetu Facebook page.
I think it's the 17th.
December 17th. And that's a wonderful event where the Native community gets to come together and celebrate our kids and provide toys and have a meal together. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you, Director Hampson. Director Harris?
Okay, y'all that don't have community meetings scheduled, December 21st, Del Ridge Library, 3 to 5. If you're keeping track, I think you're eating lasagna.
21st.
December 21st. I try for the third Saturday of the month, 3 to 5, and I rotate throughout the West Seattle community libraries. I'm going to keep my comments pretty short because y'all have heard a whole lot from me. But this next one is painful. Denny International Middle School lost a student 2 weeks ago. And we had a vigil on Friday night. We had 250 folks in the dark, in the rain, with candles. And anytime we lose one student, it's a tragedy. But I want to call out the leadership, the extraordinary leadership of our school leaders. Principal Jeff Clark had powerful and thoughtful words. I have the video, but I don't want to belabor the point. We do have permission from the child's family and foster family to share this call out. But I also want to call out to a new assistant principal at Denny International Middle School, Elliot Flavors, an African-American male, who has a sister that is also an assistant principal in the Seattle Public Schools. And we got him back from California. He grew up in the southeast part of Seattle. And he read from his phone these words. And please appreciate that the age range, in the rain, in the dark, with the candles, with music from his foster father, Amazing Grace, 12-string guitar and a harmonica. I want to take this brief moment to remind you all, especially my scholars, that life, your life, is precious. We cannot change anything in the past, so I ask that we take a couple of things from this recent heavy loss as we approach the future. You all are celebrating the loved ones in your life, Even if you are mad or not on good terms with your friends and loved ones, let them know that even though things may not be great between us, I still want you to know that I love you. Secondly, I call you all to self-reflect on what it is that you need to do to take care of yourselves. Handling life's situations on your own can be difficult, so seek the help and support that you think you may need to overcome the struggles in your life. We are here to help you. I love each and every one of you, and I look forward to celebrating our time together this school year and beyond. Bottom line, that's what we're all about, people. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Harris. Director Rivera-Smith.
Is this on? Okay, cool. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for those who came out tonight. Our first of many we'll spend together. I am so proud to be here and so proud to be working with this amazing team. And I had, and if I've been out in the community a lot so far, but if anybody wants to reach me, they can at my brand spanking new district email address. It is lisa.rivera-smith@seattleschools.org, and it'll be online and stuff, I'm sure. But anyways, excited to have that already filling up. Opened it and had 100 messages, so seriously, be patient with me. But I'm excited to be able to have that connection with people, and that I'm hearing from so many people. So anyways, in other news, 9 days into this job, and I had 1 day without a meeting, but that's awesome to me because that means I've had a lot of opportunity to be out and about. I've continued to attend all 4 board committee meetings. That is the Executive Committee, the Curriculum and Instruction Committee, the Audit and Finance Committee, and the Operations Committee. Which one am I officially on? Well, this month I was on the Curriculum and Instruction Committee. As President DeWolf mentioned earlier, we met and we talked about one bar that came up was about some proposed courses, new courses that our staff and teachers are working on, and it's really exciting. They will bring that before the board next month for approval, but it's a great group of classes they've got. They've got a Latin American literature course, immersive media, a skilled trades pre-apprenticeship class, which is great because it's going to tie into our forthcoming student community workforce agreement, which will expand student access to training and careers aligned with our CTE pathways. So that was really good to see in there, and a bunch of other classes you'll hear about next month. But speaking of those CTE pathways, I also met with our partners in the building and construction trades at their holiday open house, which was a lot of fun. And as many of them pointed out to me, that room looked a lot more diverse this last week than it did in years past. A lot more minority and women business owners and industry leaders, and it was very welcoming. And a lot of them, everyone I talked to was looking forward to working with us, or they already are on our Student Community Workforce Agreement committee that has been hard at work. So anyways, a lot of good stuff will come out of there, and that was one of my stops. On the same day, I was also at BF Day Elementary doing my first of what will eventually be 14 tours of my District 2 schools. And that was a great experience to see the inside. I've always wanted to see the inside of that building because it's a beautiful 100-year-old building, and it was just so warm and inviting. I mean, those teachers and students have a wonderful community going on there, and they're very proud of it, and they should be. And I can't wait to visit more schools in my district. I've already had my first community meeting. I got right on that, and that was on Saturday at the University District Library, which is also where I live, so that was nice. I got to walk to it, and that was really exciting to have that get started. A great group of people came out to that, and I have my next one is going to be January 4th in Fremont, at the Fremont Public Library. Then I have one February 1st at the Green Lake Library and March 7th at the Greenwood Library. Those are all within my district. I'm trying to move them around, but they're all on the first Saturdays of the month. I'm going to try to keep them there so it's consistent in that. But I also, lastly, I want to give a huge thanks to our, as you heard, our Advanced Learning Task Force finished up last night. and they worked for about 18 months on that. And it was, I think it was an amazing feat they did, because there was such diverse thought, and people in that room that came together. It wasn't always easy, but they did it, and I understand they're pretty proud of what they produced, and we'll be seeing that soon, I imagine. But thank you to them, and thank you to all. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Rivera-Smith. Director Rankin, did you want? You can also say no.
I don't say no to talking. Okay. Hi, thank you everybody for being here and participating and all of that. I keep going back and forth between feeling like I'm like pretending doing this, and also feeling like it's just the absolutely most natural place for me to be at this point in time. So that's just been sort of interesting. Before the break, as some directors I think mentioned, there was the WASDA conference, which is the Washington State School Directors Association, and if you're in the PTA structure, it feels very familiar. Kind of goes, local to, regional. And they make and pass resolutions very similarly to the way that PTA or Seattle Council PTA or Washington State PTA might. So the structure felt really familiar and comfortable to me. But it was a lot of new information and a lot of new people and very large scale. But something that was really a great way to sort of start this entry into being a board director was that opportunity to connect with board directors from around the state, and to realize how these different funding shortfalls and various other issues that we're having that are also being had across the state, but how our district is the largest district in the state. It's a third, again, as much as big as the second largest one. And a lot of districts have fewer than 5,000 kids, fewer than 1,000 kids. So actually, like, I knew that intellectually, but actually talking to people from those districts and us having that connection and realizing that, when decisions, as we're going into a legislative session in about a month, the decisions that are being made there are decisions that are being made with these wildly different needs across the state. But at the same time, at the center of it all is trying to serve our kids in our communities the best that we can. So I'm really looking forward to building on some of those relationships and staying connected with the people that have the same priorities, and hopefully take our voice and our needs in a more powerful and united way to the state legislature. The other interesting thing about that I was sort of taken aback by was how much people didn't realize we in Seattle had the same struggles that they had. I had one woman, I think she was from Arlington, was saying, well, we can't do that. We don't have Seattle resources. And I'm thinking, like, have you been in a class? Been in the classroom, and she suddenly, like, the light bulb went on, and she said, oh wait, you have the same issues that we have, but on a much larger scale. And I was like, yes. On the other hand, because we're in a large, wealthy, urban area, we do have access to different specialists and different, things like that within our city, not necessarily that are accessible to everyone in our school district, but I mean, if you need to see a neuropsych and you're in Concrete, Washington, you're going to have to come to Seattle, and we have those things here. So trying to figure out a way to just connect all the needs from around the state and bring those things together to the legislature was really the most important thing to me about the conference. And also, of course, the Open Public Meetings Act, the government required training, which was really interesting about being careful to not form a quorum, which, if you've ever wondered why board directors, when you email us, why they don't hit reply all, it's because that actually creates, this is my new piece of learning, that creates a meeting. So if I hit reply all and includes all of them, I've created a meeting that the public wasn't informed of. So I have sort of wondered that before, and anyway, maybe somebody else out there has wondered the same thing. So after that, we've had, starting off just like getting right into it with the official badge and email and having one-on-ones. The one-on-ones with senior staff, who a lot of whom are lined up here against the side of the room, have been a really great introduction into this work that's happening, and I'm really looking forward to building on those relationships. There's a lot of new faces and some familiar faces since I started advocacy and hanging out in this room a lot. And I think I'm taking very seriously that part of my role as a board director is to help amplify. I know sometimes the work that happens here is really hard to feel or see out in the district, and I'm hoping to, as part of my responsibility as a board director, help elevate some of that to the public, because there are a lot of really great things happening. As an advocate and now as a board director, I think about there's the district with a capital D, and then there's the people that are actually inside the district. And the district with a capital D is often like this looming, like, oh, the district did that and the district did that. And I think for community advocates out there and for us as a board, new board members, thinking about the difference between district with a capital D and the people inside it. Now that we're up here, may not have been around when different decisions were made, but we're part of district with a capital D, whether we like it or not. And so owning that and being comfortable with it, but also recognizing that people within this entity are doing really amazing work and really focused on our kids and our educators. So doing those one-on-ones has been really great. We've had our first budget work session and a BEX work session. I went to the community meeting that the district held for Mira and Lushai families around TAF, and that was really great to be in the room with families, and a lot of questions that I might have had as a parent, other parents asked, and then I have some other questions as a board director, but it was really nice to be just, they did a good job of bringing together community representation, and we had superintendent and staff were there, and then staff from TAF was there, and so getting the opportunity to see and hear more about this decision that we're sort of starting partway in the process as the new board directors. It was exciting, the curriculum and instruction committee meeting, because it was so fun, which I was like, yeah, anyway. Curriculum instruction was really fun. I'm just gonna say, this role and being up here and the way I talk and communicate, I'm just gonna be super transparent. I'm a theater collaborator, and I use my hands a lot and move my hands a lot, and you may see that I might fidget more than other people up here, and I just wanna be like really transparent about there are kids in our class that probably feel very, very uncomfortable having to sit and listen and not be able to get up and move around and stuff. That's me, I'm that kid, but now I'm a grown up, and you still have to, like, you know, do all those things. So instead of apologizing for it, which I have done as an adult, I'm just gonna say, like, yeah, you're gonna see me probably fidget and get up, and that's just something that I need to do, because actually asking me to sit here and not be able to build something with my hands at the same time to communicate is actually asking me to do something harder than it is to ask somebody else. And so I just want to put that out there as a just reminder, especially as we go into the conversations about HCC and neurodiversity and all this type of thing. Anyway, just sharing that. I really enjoyed the Bryant PTSA meeting. I want to also give a shout out to Sam Fogg and the Bryant PTSA, like Director Hampson said, and I think I said to the Bryant families, I said, you know that nobody else gets this many people in the room together for a PTSA meeting. All 3 of their state representatives, their city council person, and then 3 board directors. So that was really, really fun. And what I actually really enjoyed about that conversation was that the Bryant families had the opportunity, had a captive audience in all of us, and their questions were really about the health and happiness of our whole school system and our whole city, which I just really, I mean, so many times one issue or one group can kind of suck all the air out of the room, and they really, as a whole, were, you know, thinking about their own students, of course, but when they were asking us questions, they weren't asking, you know, what can you do for us right here, right now? For my kids, they were really thinking about the future of Bryant as a school and a community and what their place was in Seattle Public Schools. And that is something that I just really appreciated, and I'm going to kind of try to remember and hold with me going forward. And tomorrow I am going to have the pleasure of visiting Olympic Hills with the superintendent. It will be my first official school visit besides my own kid's school, which I guess that was an official visit, but in one of my district schools. So I'm really, really excited about that. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do for community meetings yet. I was introduced by some 6th grade friends to TikTok before Thanksgiving. And so my kids and I made some TikTok videos over Thanksgiving. And so I'm going to experiment a little bit. I know I'm like over 40, but I'm going to experiment using TikTok for those of you who also maybe don't have teenagers in the house. It's a super just fun way to make short videos that you can sync with sound. And so I'm going to really try to do that, put that out there to share some like positive good work, and also just sort of demystify some of, for anybody who might be interested, what the school board does. And in these little quick blurbs, I'm going to see how I can get them captioned or but anyway, that's yeah, and they're fun and they're funny, and you know, as very very seriously as this work is, and as much as there is at stake, I think at the heart of it also there is so much fun and joy in that I really want to try to help keep us thinking on, is that we have to find happiness and joy and fun to serve our kids, and have our schools be places where kids and their teachers and their families want to be. So anyway.
Thank you, Director
That's
Rankin. I'll just finish up briefly, and then we'll head out for a recess. We could. Just first, as a citizen of the Chippewa Cree Nation of Rockabelle, Montana, I do want to recognize again that we are on stolen and indigenous land. I'm grateful to live, work, and serve in the city as the ancestral homeland to the Duwamish people, the Muckleshoot Nation, and the Suquamish Nation. We acknowledge them as custodians of this land since time immemorial, and as guests, and certainly and in many cases as settlers on this land, we extend our deepest gratitude and respect to their ancestors and elders past, present, and future. I wanted to share my continued gratitude to our labor partners, SPS staff, community members, and the board for deeply engaging with each other in the participation of the Student and Community Workforce Agreements Task Force. We have a handful of meetings left, and thanks to some great advice from our superintendent, we are working on adding an additional weekend session to hear from and engage students from the Student Advisory Board. And as you might know, as part of our board goals last year, we told ourselves we would hold 2 work sessions out in the community, and we held our final of those 2 at Lincoln High School last week, as Director Rankin mentioned about budget and BEX 5. I also want to just extend more gratitude to our capital staff and the resource conservation team. We heard from them at our November Operations Committee, and I found a time to come back for another longer meeting with them. And so I look forward to expanding our commitments to a more green and sustainable school district, capital D. And I think just, as a personal point too, we have about 8 to 10 years to hit an important greenhouse gas emissions reduction target. We can do this, in fact, and in the words of Greta, who is a young person who was just named the Time Magazine's Person of the Year and a young climate activist, real change is going to be costly. It requires giving things up, the loss of power and privilege, but we do need new commitments, new systems, and new ways of life in order to address this crisis. I was also so honored to speak last week on a panel with colleagues and friends such as County Councilmember Jeannie Cole Wells on homelessness in our region, hosted by the League of Women Voters Seattle-King County last week. And as Director Hersey Mack mentioned, we did hold our community meeting. It was very, I would say, just super grateful for the folks that came out. But I think one deeply important thing I just want to elevate from that meeting, and I think Director Mack mentioned this too, is we had a couple questions about our ethnic studies. And one of the parents had mentioned that there was certainly the lens by which that teacher was teaching that year was through an ethnic studies lens. One of the conversations that came up was about racism, and there was a discomfort about thinking about that topic, and I want to at least be very clear from my perspective as board president now. I think we should be engaging in these topics with our young folks, because we, I think as adults, have not done a very good job of engaging in those conversations, and so I'm really grateful that at least our students are taking on that challenge. The other thing we talked about was as Director Mack did mention, that there were some questions about identity, and a lot of, I think parents, because there weren't a lot of students in that room, the parents felt uncomfortable that their children were put into a position where they're describing their personal identities. And again, just want to be very clear on the record to say that, particularly as an LGBTQ person, often the discomfort does not come from students or young people, it comes from the parents and the adults. And if a teacher had asked me anything about my gender identity or sexual orientation, or just made the classroom feel safe that we could talk about it, I think that certainly my young public school experience would have been a lot more positive. So I really am grateful that our students are engaging in these difficult but important conversations, because I think often as adults we've not had them when we needed to. The only last thing I want to mention is I'm working with Director Rankin on a letter to City Council. I don't know if you know this, but both here in Seattle, Councilmember Sawan is exploring a ban on evictions between November 1st and March 31st. It made me think about what are the ways that we as an educational expert and authority here in the city can advocate for still educational kind of needs while also advocating for things that intersect, such as housing. And in San Francisco, they've actually been successful in passing 2 ordinances that ban evictions for teachers and students and their families during the academic year, and it's been upheld in the courts. So Director Rankin and I are going to work on a letter to City Council that we'll put into a bar and a resolution that we'll bring to Executive Committee in January. And then we'll have the full board be able to look at that. But just as an example of the fact that as a board, we not only think about education, but particularly about the intersections of important things such as housing, which also impacts our students' educational outcomes. And we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can advocate for housing as well as make sure our students are graduating on time. So that's it for me. The board meeting will now recess for a 10-minute break, and we will reconvene. The board meeting will now recess for a 15-minute break, and we will reconvene at 7 p.m. It's at 7 p.m.
There may even be a rule that you can't.
So, I just want to, at least again, for our audience watching online and otherwise, note that each of these items were brought forward at our last meeting for introduction. We spent a good deal of time discussing and asking questions and hearing from staff. So given, as well as the committee process, so given that prior robust discussion, don't necessarily think we need to revisit or rehash things that are already on the record, but please do elevate any new questions or concerns. So, okay, let's begin with action item number 1. Do I have a motion?
I move that the school board authorize the superintendent to execute an agreement with DyneTech, Inc. to provide a metropolitan wide area network elementary hardware upgrade with 1-year support for a total not to exceed amount of $2,194,364.89.
Do I have a second?
You have a second.
I'm like, still, okay. And this came forward to the Audit and Finance Committee on November 4th for approval. So do directors have any comments or questions from our last regular board meeting? Director Mack?
Yeah, my question is just to clarify for the record what was updated since introduction.
Chief Berge, take it away. Thanks.
So the last part of the title, the words that were added are at the end. It says, of which an estimated amount is $1,090,505.04 is federal E-rate funding, resulting in a net cost in the amount of $1,103,859.85. That was added.
Thank you.
Are there any other directors with comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. Ms. Scheck, please take it away.
Director Hampson?
Aye.
Director Hersey?
Aye.
Director Mack? Aye. Director Rankin? Director Rivera-Smith?
Aye.
Director Harris?
Aye.
Director DeWolf?
Aye.
This motion is passed unanimously.
Thank you. Action item number 2. Do I have a motion?
I move that the school board authorize the superintendent to accept the City of Seattle Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program grant funding in the amount of up to $473,525 to fund the nutrition program in 20 district schools, and also authorize the superintendent to take any necessary steps to implement this action.
Second.
This came through Ops on November 7th for consideration. Do board directors have any questions or comments?
I have a comment.
Director Hampson.
So I just wanted to point out this particular bar provided, board action report provided a good, a reference to what I would consider further down the line equity analysis, I believe. I have a copy of the bar in front of me. In discussion of, here we go. I will just read it because I did make a note of it. Director will prioritize sourcing locally grown produce from women or minority-owned businesses using appropriate procurement methods and up to 4 purchases or transactions of fruit and vegetable snacks, while the Nutrition Services Director will make every effort to source locally and source from women or minority-owned businesses. Snack menu items may vary and non-local substitutions may be made if the Nutrition Services Director at their discretion determines that such a variance or substitution is warranted. I appreciate that level of equity analysis and just wanted to hold that up as a standard for me, and because whereas in, well, I guess we'll talk about it on item 3. I'll bring up a sort of situation where I'm not finding that. But so thank you, whoever provided that additional information about that equity analysis.
And just for clarification, that's in the agreement on page 5 for folks. Director Mack?
Yeah, I actually, seeing that it was brought forward for consideration, I'm not seeing a notation and trying to remember why was it consideration. Did we not have the dollar amount in there? I have the minutes. Mr. Podesta, do you recall why it was consideration and not approval?
It was for consideration because there was some language cleaned up clarifying that it was a grant, not a contract.
Does that answer your
Yes,
question?
so the question was, yeah, from the minutes it says, and I'm so grateful to our minutes, Jennifer, who does amazing minutes. It said that we asked staff to confirm that with legal that the language is appropriate for accepting the grant funds, I believe. And
the
and you did.
revisions were made prior to introduction.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions or comments from directors? Seeing none, Ms. Scheck, I'll let it go to you. You can have the mic.
Director Hersey?
Aye.
Director Rankin? Director Rivera-Smith?
Aye.
Director Harris?
Aye.
Director Mack? Aye. Director Hampson? Aye. Director DeWolf?
Aye.
This motion is passed unanimously.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to action item number 3. Do I have a motion?
I move that the school board authorize the superintendent to execute AE architectural, what's the E stand for? engineering contract P1627 with NAC Architecture in the amount of $5,010,462 plus reimbursable expenses of $35,000 for architectural and engineering services. The total contract amount of $5,045,462 is for the Kimball Elementary School project with any minor additions, deletions, and modifications deemed necessary by the superintendent, and to take any necessary actions to implement the contract.
Second?
And this came through Ops on November 7th for approval. Are there any questions or comments from board directors?
Again, when we update since introductions, just want to kind of call out what that is and the reason for it. And looking over the bar, what I'm recalling was that one of the directors from our last meeting requested to have clarification around the reimbursable expenses, if they're included in the total or if they're not. And then there's a large section in the bar that clarifies exactly what that means and how that plays out in terms of what's included in which number. And is that the only correction, Mr. Podesta? Or addition, not correction, but
Yes, the bar breaks out the direct expenses and indirect expenses into two amounts, and so the question, I believe, was what are allowable expenses, allowable reimbursable expenses? So the contract boilerplate has been inserted into the bar, and this is true for item 4 as well, that it's just the list of allowable reimbursable expenses.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Podesta. Any other comments or questions from board directors? Director Hampson?
Yes, I'm just trying to pull up the bar. So regarding the contract and how it's presented in the bar with respect to equity analysis, I noted that there's a superintendent procedure. There's not much discussion. Either it's listed, I can't remember if it's listed as not applicable or limited relevance. As I said in my earlier comments, from my perspective, you'd have to make a really strong case for equity analysis to not be relevant for me as a school board director. And there is a superintendent procedure for selection of firms, specifically architecture and engineering, from 2012, so it's quite dated, providing opportunities to minority and women-owned firms, and as part of an outreach process for minority and women-owned firms, staff shall, and then there's a list 1 through 4, the last of which is to update this list every 2 years. And so I'm wondering, that's the kind of thing that I'm wondering why that doesn't come forward in the bar, and was that part of this process? This is, we're an action item. I wasn't here for the intro item when it would have been a better time to ask that question, but so.
That type of outreach recruiting does occur as part of the solicitation for architecture and engineering contracts. I think staff on these contract board actions has interpreted equity analysis as using the district's analysis toolkit with regard to the decision to do the body of work, to how does the project affect equity, and that what it's trying to state is that was done as part of the project selection overall to do the Kimball project and how it was prioritized. But your point is well taken, and we can certainly include how we've reached out to women and minority businesses as part of recruiting for the contract board actions. And in the operations committee, we're actually looking at the contract board action process a little bit, and that can be a step we can certainly provide more detail there.
So I think just to add, I think that's something particularly maybe in exec committee we can explore around helping provide guidance on how to make this more robust and utilize those processes too.
We want to represent the equity work that we are doing, and then be able to acknowledge where there are gaps, and it's difficult to do that if that information isn't being brought forward.
No, your point is well taken. Again, I think it's the context that this was viewed in and you'll find this language in a lot of capital contract board action reports.
Thank you.
Director Harris and Director Mack.
Glad to see your acquiescence, if you will, to that comment. You know, not only are we supposed to provide equity analysis for services and programs delivered to our students, but when we ask the voters for over $1 billion, we have to be leaders in this work. And number 7, I thank you, Director Hampson, for bringing this up. Frankly, it grates the hell out of me. It feels like box checking. This motion was not put through the process of an equity analysis. The selection of projects in the BEX 5 program was designed to provide equitable access to safe school facilities across the city. Our role as leaders and modelers, we need to do better. And Lord knows I haven't been at ops in the last year or two, but in the last 4 years, I've only seen one listing of women in minority business ownership, and that was 3 years ago. And frankly, our outreach efforts to make our list more robust were pretty weak, and that's a bandwidth issue.
I think kind of social equity programs related to contracting will be a natural outgrowth of our discussion about student and community workforce agreements, because frankly the district is lacking some infrastructure for those types of services as part of our public works contracting process, which is something we're going to have to face up to.
Thank you, Chief Podesta. And I think you've at least heard it from here, from the dais. And again, we also have our conversation about board goals on Saturday too. So I think this might be a really great, easy first goal to really dive into just either how we, utilize the analysis, and I think potential other conversations I've been stirring at least for the last few months are, is this board action report template actually working for us? And so it might be something we can add to that in the board goals. Director Mack?
Yeah, I am grateful that Director Hampson took a dive into the policies and procedures and actually looked that up, because, and the number is 6220 SP. She's like me, and so it's, yay, I'm excited to have a kindred spirit on the board. But I also think that it's really, she's highlighting a disconnect between existing policy and procedures that we have that are not being circled back into the analysis process, and that in fact these things are supposed to be done, or they are being done, and we have a disconnect. And so as part of the board goal conversation around the racial equity analysis and how that's being done, I'd just like to ask that we ensure that that is including a review of our policies and procedures that we may not even be thinking of, and actually kind of maybe create a matrix that's like, here is, a way that, or these are policies that could be referenced in these contexts. So I just thank you for bringing that up.
I think this has been well communicated. I just want to make sure, particularly as we think about this Kimball action item number 3, it is 7:15, and I want to make sure people get home. And so if anybody has any more things about Kimball Elementary, and I saw Superintendent Juneau.
Yeah, I would just add, thank you for this conversation. It's something that we've actually been talking about too. And I think it's a good conversation to have. We staff have been having this conversation about how to flesh this out. I know Director Harris, you've also talked about the fiscal analysis, and so we have had conversation about some of that as well. And so I think it's a ripe conversation. The other thing I would point out is I've been meeting with different departments throughout central administration, and I think we do a better job because there is a lot of work actually happening. I just met with Richard Best's team, and they actually are really diving into the strategic plan and what that means to them, department by department. And they have started putting forward conversations with architecture and construction firms that are coming to them about racial equity, which is a surprise to a lot of the contractors coming into the room, and are actually talking about instituting during the architecture and construction presentations to get the bids, and what that process looks like is actually having them do a racial equity presentation as a part of the work as well. And so we need to be better at communicating actually what is happening and not be so brief about where we've been. And so I just want you to know as a body that our departments are working on a very deep level. We can communicate it better, and I think it's a good conversation for us to have. So thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Juneau. Director Rankin?
Yeah, so following that, just to tie it back to our students, actually, so before I was elected, attended both the conversation that Ryan Calkins at the Port Commissioner Ryan Calkins had and hosted around maritime trades, and also the summit mentioned earlier that was hosted by Seattle Public Schools Skills Center in the same location. And particularly in the maritime conversation, there was a lot of discussion around diversifying the people coming into that position, and the need that not only to address equity in hiring practices and also encouraging a more diverse population of students to seek out those jobs, but the need on the industry side to, as the older generations retire, and the way that they need to adapt their practice and policy and industry culture to be ready to welcome our diverse students. So I just thought that was
That's awesome.
nice that seems to be working on all levels, and it comes back to our kids too. So.
Thanks, Director Rankin. And I would just maybe request Superintendent Juneau, can you just share some of that work in the Friday memo, just again to kind of communicate, where we are, and then I think it sounds like a conversation that the Ops Committee can also think about, particularly in the contracting process to improve that. And again, I think we should elevate this on as a board goal. So if any more directors have board questions or comments, particularly as it pertains to action item number 3 with Kimball Elementary. Okay, Ms. Scheck, roll call, please.
Dr. Hersey?
Aye.
Dr. Rivera-Smith? Aye. Dr. Rankin?
Aye.
Dr. Hampson? Aye. Dr. Mack?
Aye.
Dr. Harris?
Aye.
Dr. DeWolf?
Aye.
This motion is passed unanimously.
All right, action item number 4. Do I have a motion?
I move that the school board authorize A, the superintendent to execute architecture and engineering contract P1666, unfortunate number, with Miller Hayashi Architects in the amount of $2,231,962 plus reimbursable expenses of $30,000 for architectural and engineering services for the West Seattle Elementary School addition and renovation project, with any minor additions, deletions, and modifications deemed necessary by the superintendent, and to take any necessary actions to implement the contract. And B, to allow transfer of $4.4 million from the K-3 class size reduction grant to the West Seattle Elementary School renovation and addition project to construct a 12 classroom addition.
Second.
Thank you, and this came through Ops on November 7th for approval. Do I have any board director questions or comments? And I think probably the same concern from action item number 3 applies here too. Director Mack?
Yeah, and just, for the record, the same updated clarification around the reimbursable expenses was made to this as well.
Are there any board questions or comments? Director Rivera-Smith?
I just wanted to address a concern we had from our public testimony concerning the public meetings to address environmental reviews. Are we in fact not doing those, or how do we decide when we do and when we don't? It sounds like our statement is that they're not required, but
They're not required, and we have been, again, trying to streamline the overall project process and the SEPA process, and found that taking public comment the way we do via mail and other forms, it was easier really to analyze, and was more fruitful. So yeah, we are not having a voluntary SEPA hearing for or a SEPA public meeting for each project.
so we're gathering that public information or
Yes.
comments in what forms are we doing that in then?
We take them via email, via postcard. We send postcards to radius around each project site and encourage comments that way via mail or email or telephone.
Okay, well,
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Well, maybe, again, so maybe it's a conversation we can have later too about,
Sure.
about the benefits and cost-benefit analysis, I'm sure of that, but thank you.
Well, it sounds like Chief Podesta, we are still gathering public comment and public input, and
Absolutely.
we are following the law. So thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Director Mack?
Does this contract or this program, is this discussed in either of the, is it, Mr. Podesta, I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember the names of the advisory committees. They're actually run by the city and not us, but there's is it the school's traffic safety committee? But there's there's the Safe Routes to Schools program. And is this part of that? And I'm just wondering whether or not the advisory committees are, whether or not,
Are you looking at our A&E contract or the intro item?
oh, I apologize. I thought we were on this
I
next
think
one.
Director Mack's really excited about number 1 and the
I was
intro
trying
items.
to, I'm trying to move the meeting forward. Apologies.
Are there any more comments or questions from board directors? Okay, seeing none. Ms. Scheck, roll call, please.
Director Harris?
Aye.
Director Rivera-Smith?
Aye.
Director Rankin? Director Mack?
Aye.
Director Hersey?
Aye.
Director Hampson?
Aye.
Director DeWolf?
Aye.
This motion is passed unanimously.
Thank you. Great work, everyone. So we'll now move to the introduction portion of the agenda. Introduction item number 1 is approval of amendments to add cycling and pedestrian safety education for 6th, 7th, and 8th grades to the Seattle Department of Transportation SDOT Let's Go Bike and Pedestrian Safety Education Program. This came through CNI on November 12th for approval. So I was the CNI chair, so I won't call on myself. But if any of the other directors that were there have any, at least anything to add, particularly as it pertains to this bar that will be coming forward. And if not, I want to at least also just recognize we have Chief DeBacker here, and I would invite you to speak a little bit about this item.
Thank you, President DeWolf. The Let's Go program currently provides physical education teachers with the resources and training needed to implement an in-school bicycle and pedestrian safety program for students in grades 3, 4, and 5. That's currently in place. The bar in front of you tonight is asking for an expansion of that to grades 6, 7, and 8. It would be still through SDOT, Seattle Department of Transportation, and it would go through the Cascade Bicycle Club. This is a program that has been in Seattle Public Schools since around 2015. It is a program that we have expanded over the past couple years, and this is a very good move forward in that it's expanding up to the middle school levels.
Thank you, Chief DeBacker. Any board questions or comments? Director Hampson?
I have a couple. They're related to my prior comments by and large, so I'll just state them at once and then you can answer them all together. I can ask each one subsequently. So there is a discussion of equity. It's not clear. I would consider it cursory in that it's still not clear to me. There's just sort of this statement of we have to get away from this. Well, it's available to everybody, so therefore it's equitable. That's not equity. That's equality. And so my question is, how will this program be equitably available in the district? How are we going to select the schools? How are we making sure that it gets to students who otherwise don't have bikes or don't have access to any to safety equipment for their bikes? I'm not sure. Cascade Bicycle Club has actually come in and out of my school community, so I know they've had some changes. And to take that equity question one step further is, what is because they come out and they do this work in schools with students, so they're our partner. They're an important partner. What is their board makeup? What is their commitment to racial equity in particular? What does their board look like? What does their staff look like, particularly the staff that are teaching students? These are the questions that I think, as Chief Podesta had mentioned, or maybe it was you, Superintendent Juneau, that we need to make sure that our partners are able to provide this information to us to be consistent with our strategic plan in order to be in partnership with us. So those are the questions that I have about that, those different layers. And the other is about the buy-in at the local level, who's in terms, well, and actually I can't remember, there's something else, another thought I had about that that I need to think about. So I'll let you answer the first question.
Cascade Bike Club provides the bikes, and then they provide the training to the physical education teachers, and then our own physical education teachers teach that to the students. So there's not a direct, Cascade is not teaching our students. They're actually providing the bikes and the training to our teachers to do that. I do not know the makeup of their organization as to their equity makeup. In terms of how our schools are chosen, it's available to all middle schools, so this will make it available to all middle schools, and it's on a basis of where schools sign up, and every school signs up. And it's on a first come, first served basis, but the intent is that every school will be served during the time frame of that program. So during this spring semester.
So just as follow-up, now I know what the buy-in part was, because I know that sometimes schools that need it most can be left out if they happen to have a staff person who isn't the one that is going to buy in, or for some reason the thought process is, well, these kids don't have bikes to ride, so why would we do this program? And that's another thing to sort of consider in terms of access to bikes after the fact. They used to do more to create opportunities for kids to own bikes through repair, and then Children's provides helmets, but that whole part of the equation is necessary for this to be for them to be true participants in the program, meaning they're not just learning how to be safe riding bikes when they have them at school, but then that there's other ways to give them access to bicycles as a form of transportation, particularly to and from school, outside of the program if they don't have access to bikes.
Yeah, we can address that as we come back with this for action in January. Lori Dunn, who oversees this program, I know she's listening right now, so she's probably making notes of how we can add that into the action item. Thank you.
And I just want to use this as a point. I think, too, it would be really helpful, particularly, and again, with some of us new directors, I think it'd be really helpful to just send questions prior to either this meeting or the action meeting so we can bring those up again. Because I think part of it, too, is I want to make sure they're prepared, because some of these questions are really great, and I want to make sure you've had a chance. So just as a suggestion that something to get into the practice in for January, but if there's questions, Chief Tobacco is the one to go with this. So Director Mack?
As I'm reading the title and the purpose, it sounds to me like there's grant money coming in and there's contracts going out, but the language doesn't reference the grant or the acceptance of the grant. And so I have a question around that. That came up. That was one of the questions on the previous bar that there's two things that is happening in this board action, both the acceptance of the grant and the implementation of the contract. So reading this, I'm asking because I think I know the answer, that it does actually need to be clarifying somehow that the grant is being accepted as well, that there's that other piece. And I'm also not clear of like what the grant is, how much money is coming in and how much is going out. So are we accepting a grant from who? And we're doing that board action of accepting that grant, and we have these contracts that are going out in this way. And it seems like a two-step thing that the grant piece is not actually clear in the bar.
I just want to provide clarification. If I understand it, this agreement came through in July 2015, which would have been before any of us board directors as far as an agreement. So
Maybe grant was already accepted previously. I don't know. It's
You are correct. There is money coming in from SDOT, so that will come into Seattle Public Schools. We will then send that money to Cascade Bike Club to then distribute the bikes and do the training with our teachers. So it's simply a flow through.
And so can we clarify that in the language there, that there's grant dollars, and clarify when the grant was officially accepted by the board, and if we need to actually take that action?
I think it is in the fiscal impact revenue source section at the further down, at least if I'm reading it correctly. 2015 was when we originally went into the agreement, July. And I think this is coming for us because you're doing this as a $264,000 bar, as opposed to coming back in a year from now with these less than $250,000 amounts, right?
Right. There's some previous amounts that did not meet that threshold, so they did not have to come before the board. This one is above that amount.
But our board policy requires that we accept grants. And so I'm just not clear on, have we done that, and clarifying that in the language.
We will get that done.
Thank you.
Director Harris?
One of my favorite topics, traumatic brain injury. I know that Harborview has a great deal of county money for safety and helmets, and I wonder, and I don't wonder, I know in my heart of hearts that Lori Dunn is on top of this. So if we could focus on the issue of helmets and maybe leverage that with the Harborview programs, that I don't want to set children up for sadness or families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board comments or questions?
I-
Director Rankin?
Thanks. I can maybe look this up later too, so we don't have to take up time now, but I was wondering about the relationship between this and Bike to School Month that happens in the spring, if there's any kind of overlap or kind of continuation of how that works and who, but that's something I can maybe find out offline.
I mean, and this is also intro portion, so these, I mean, this is the time to bring those on the record, and I think particularly too, as you can tell, Chief Tobacco's writing the stuff down, so this is a great opportunity to ask those questions. The question I have is, are we, particularly through the partnership agreement we signed with the City of Seattle in November of 2017, are we able to, are we actually providing any input or expertise from our perspective on any of the Vision Zero work, the Bike Master Plan, any of our safe, how are we being a part of those conversations? Do you know?
Yeah, Lori Dunn has been involved in many of those conversations in her work as our health educator for Seattle Public Schools. So she's been in those conversations.
Okay. And transportation?
I believe so. I don't know for sure on that one.
Oh, well.
You just appeared beside me.
So transportation, that work is brought up by the city's school traffic safety committee that Director Mack brought up, and transportation and risk management and SDOT and the Seattle Police Department and multiple parts of the district and other agencies get together, and that feeds into some of the work on the Safe Routes to School program. There's more we can do along that front, but we do have input.
Thank you. And if directors have any more questions or comments, also just encourage you to send questions to Chief Tobacco, and if you can share those out in the Friday memo, at least before the next board meeting. If anything comes up, that would be great to share.
May I?
Yes, Director Harris.
And when you send questions to staff, one of the things that was beyond hugely helpful to me in my role as president was to be copied, so we don't model silo behavior, and we can act more as a team, and we can leverage off of each other. And if we don't do that, we're setting ourselves up to be less than. And the rule of three.
Reduce,
but
reuse,
keeping
recycle.
your colleagues in the loop.
That's what I was going to
The president, the chair of the committee. I cannot tell you how big a difference it makes. And I believe the superintendent's going to talk about being blindsided by herself.
Not blindsided, but I would like to also just harken back to our 1620 conversations, and I did send out, even to the new directors, we sort of have a lined out process as is. So 1620 is how it currently is, and then our current tools that we use in order to implement that 1620. So that should be all in your inboxes from a couple weeks ago. And so in addition, when you're emailing staff, if you would just CC the president and CC me and Sherry Cox, that would be helpful because we can preempt a lot of stuff, I think, that way, and gather information quicker. And then we're all in the loop. So.
And on the Friday memo, are you, I think I may have recalled a process where you were including which director asked the question and then answering those questions?
I believe that's how we're doing it now, right?
Yeah, so.
When we can,
we can also see that kind of enumerated in the Friday memo. Director Rankin, did you have anything to say before we adjourn?
No, I can, no.
All right.
Answered.
So there being no further business to come before the board, this regular board meeting is now adjourned at 7:38 p.m.